This is just a quick video just to explain the final assignment in Analytic Geometry, Unit 3. So this is Activity 9. So you have two assignments to do. The first one is about a car, and it gives you kind of two options. So there's a leasing option and a financing option. So in the leasing option, the people aren't going to buy the car in the end. They're just kind of, well, maybe they are, but they're just kind of paying a price per month to use the car, and we don't know how long it's going for, but we don't need to. So all we want to do is just kind of compare these two options. In the financing option, it means they're kind of borrowing money so that they can eventually own the car. Okay, so for the leasing option, you're given an equation in standard form, so like this. So it's a good idea to switch it into Slope-Intercept Form because it asks you to find the equations in Slope-Intercept Form for each option. And you don't have that for the leasing one. So if I were you, I would convert this equation into Slope-Intercept Form. So like y equals mx plus b. So you'll have to kind of rearrange this equation to isolate y. And then it tells you that x stands for the number of months of ownership. So whatever your slope variable is, you're going to have to kind of interpret that because it wants you to explain the significance of the slope and y-intercept for each option. So like you're figuring out how much is it going up, and x is your number of months. So you're just kind of trying to interpret what could that mean? And what could B mean in terms of like leasing a car? And if you don't really understand leasing a car, that's totally fine. Just kind of explain what you think the y-intercept might mean in this scenario. For the financing option, it's a little trickier because you're just given 2 points essentially. So you're given $400 is the cost for 0 months, and then $4,400 is the cost for 10 months of ownership. So you have to try to figure out how to take those two pieces of information, which is basically like 2 points, and figure out how you can get an equation from that. I'm thinking you should be able to find the slope from 2 points, because in this unit we found the slope given 2 points using this equation. Oops. So you should be able to find the slope since you have 2 points. And we should also be able to find the y-intercept because it's also pretty obvious. And then you'll be able to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So y equals mx plus b. So then you'll have an equation in slope-intercept form for each situation. And you want to kind of, interpret again for this one, what does slope and y-intercept mean? And they might be kind of the same thing for both options, but you just want to state what it kind of means in terms of buying a car. And then it asks you if you could graph each equation by hand on the same set of axes and compare under what conditions which should you use each option. So then now that you have the equations in y-intercept form, now you could easily just make a grid and then graph x is the number of months that you own the vehicle for, and y is the cost. So then you just want to figure out a scale for underneath here, whatever you're going to go up by, and figure out a scale for your cost. It doesn't really matter as long as you want to find out kind of the point where they're going to intersect. So I'm not making this because this is for you guys to do, but you kind of want to make sure you get this when you're making the graph. So make sure your scale goes up by a number that's going to make sure you see that point of intersection. So we have to play around with that. And you need to know kind of when they're going to be at the same price point because you have to determine under what conditions you should choose each option. So like maybe here you want to say, oh, if you're going to have this car for less than this many months, you should finance it or whatever. I didn't want to do it for real because this is your final assignment. So you got to figure out like under which conditions you should use each option. Okay. And then the second assignment is kind of interesting. It's the question where you have Pippa and Sammy who are arguing about what kind of shape this makes. And there's kind of a weird aspect to this question, which you may or may not figure out. So anyways, here's your 4 points that you'll want to plot. So you'll want to make a sketch of these. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -1. So there's A. So you want to sketch out A, B, C, and D. So that way you can graph it. And kind of, I've just graphed that. That is not the shape at all. I just roughed that out because I didn't want you to see the actual one. So anyways, once you graph it, if you graph it, it turns out it looks, identical to a square. You're like, oh, that's definitely a square. Okay, cool. But you need to be able to prove what kind of shape it is. So let me just see here. It says, who is right, Pippa or Sammy? And show your calculations and your reasoning. So if you just say it's a square because all the sides are the same length, or because the angles in between each adjacent side is 90 degrees. So if you can prove that, you have to show me your calculations. Show me that you figured out the slope of this side and the slope of this side, and you found out these two lines are perpendicular, if that's what you did. Or did you find the lengths of the sides? So just trying to show me and use calculations, like whatever your calculations are. It's not that. I just made that up. I need to see those. And then you can pick. Is Sammy right? Is Pippa right? Is everybody right? Nobody? Who knows? So just kind of prove whichever one you think is correct. Okay, so hopefully that helps you get started and able to complete those 2 assignments.